Welcome to episode 3 of the Heart Over Hype podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, you might be asking yourself, where's episode 2? It got corrupted. It tried to upload a second time, and I tried to delete the second upload, and it deleted both. So, episode 2 ceases to exist. I still have a couple clips up on the Instagram, but for storage reasons on my phone, I had to delete it. And I'm also feeling a little under the weather, so this is not the best introduction. And I did plan on doing this with a member, a guy named Wyatt Bell. He's probably going to be on the podcast soon. I did plan on doing this with him, but I was sick, and I told him that, I didn't really want to do this Friday or Saturday. He was good about it, and a lot of the stuff on my script has to do with like stuff on Friday. Like I wrote down UF versus Auburn preview, and well, that game already happened. So, be prepared if I start to go a little mumble jumble a bit on this. But yeah, hopefully this is a pretty good episode. Going to try and keep it short. Going to have Wyatt on soon. Also going to have 2 members of my FIFA Pro Clubs team on. They know who they are because they're pretty much the only 2 members of that team with me. My striker and my center attacking mid. They score most of the goals. I do most of the defending and dribbling. But it's a fun team. Some of the headlines I wrote down. Mike Woodson is finished after this year. Not much of a surprise because Illinois has been kind of lackluster the last couple of years. Jalen Hood-Schifino, big member of a big trade recently, and Khalil Ware were both members in Indiana, but they haven't really done much. So sad to see Mike Woodson go. Not really much of an opinion on it. Dylan Harper returns for Rutgers as they knocked off Illinois. Illinois, I really only saw them play a couple times this year, and one of them was against Oregon, on the road against Oregon. And Illinois played great that game without their number 32. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. The freshman, he's a very good player at Illinois, and he was hurt, and they played without him. And they actually knocked off Oregon when Oregon was one of the higher ranked teams in the country. And I think I really rate Illinois highly, kind of like I did Texas last year, just because I saw them play once. And so that's a big win for Rutgers. And, obviously I wrote that on Friday, and, Rutgers played a more recent game. I forget who they played today. I think it was Maryland, yeah, because Julian Reese. But, yeah, Rutgers did get knocked off today. I don't think Ace Bailey played his best game. Auburn, I have written down here that they're dominant, but they're not UConn. Because I saw some headlines talking on Twitter about like, hey, this Auburn team is so dominant. We haven't seen a team like this before. And it's like, really, man? I mean, UConn literally last year played a team in the Elite Eight, Illinois, which technically if you're in the Elite Eight, that means you're one of the top 8 teams in the country, right? That team had Terrence Shannon Jr., a lot of good guys. And UConn went on a 30-0 run that game. 30-0. I mean, I don't really understand why people don't talk about that more. 30-0. But yeah, and they haven't won a game by less than 15 points in the tournament the last 2 years, I don't think. And I mean, that's insane, I don't really care that they just lost to St. John's. St. John's is one of the best teams in the country. I think they're a top 5 team to me, realistically, and so I'm still gonna rep the brand. But UConn's dominant. Auburn looked really good until they lost to UF. But something I realized after that game, because if I bet that game, and I'm trying to stop betting as much because, well, it doesn't really turn out good for me, and I use flips, so I'm using house money, but it never ends well for me. I'll probably try a little bit this baseball season, but I'm not really like excited about it that much. Just really excited about fantasy baseball, not really betting on baseball, and hopefully the Pirates can be good. But if I were betting on that UF Auburn game, I wouldn't have bet Auburn money line. You know what I would have bet? Auburn minus 9.5. That's how confident I was that Auburn was going to beat UF. And I got to pull it up. But the game, I don't think it was, Auburn went on a little run late, but UF won by 9 points exactly, it says. And then Clemson last night just beat Duke. And it's like, yeah, the better team in college basketball doesn't always win. That's why college basketball is so amazing, and, I think it's the best sport on the earth. And, we have tough matchups, and UF, I mean, Auburn probably beats UF a lot of times if you simulate it, but this certain time UF knocked them off, and that doesn't mean that Auburn is automatically should go down my list 10 spots just because they lost to UF. Like every team has tough games. I mean, UConn, most dominant team ever last year, lost to Kansas. I know Cam Spencer was playing really bad. That game was coming off an injury, but they lost to Kansas, and then they lost to Creighton. And I think they had one other loss last year, but they're tough losses happen for teams. I mean, you look at Auburn has that tough loss to UF last night. UF had a tough loss to Tennessee. Tennessee had a tough loss to UF, and I mean. Houston has a couple tough losses. Duke has a couple tough losses. I mean, you look at there's not a perfect team in the country right now. I mean, Alabama has a couple tough losses. Like, there's no perfect team in the country. So, I shouldn't hate on every single school and say that there's not any real good college basketball teams this year, except St. John's. To me, I think St. John's is one of the best teams in the country. But and I wasn't gonna go about it this much on this pod because the guy I was talking. The Wyatt Bell, who I'm going to bring on, I had a bunch of Creighton stuff written down for him. Creighton versus Providence, Calk had a big game. But just, as much as I don't really like some of these big schools, they might turn up. SEC still shouldn't have 14 bids. I mean, it's not a 14-bid league to me. Realistically, it's just when you have 16 teams in a conference, I don't really think all 14 of those 16 are good enough to make it. I think if you're getting 14 bids, then the Ivy League should have 2 bids because, I mean, Yale and Princeton are just elite teams that look great every time they compete against each other because, I mean, Yale looks like they're cementing themselves into the tournament, potentially even if they lose in the Ivy League tournament. But, I mean, yeah, Princeton played at Yale. At Yale, I think it was at Princeton. Yeah, it was at Princeton. And because I was on the New York City thing, I couldn't watch the game. But Xavier Lee and I think it was Phil Byriel played terrible shooting, maybe a combined like 1 for 17 from the field or something, and they still lost by like 6 points because Jack Stanton turned up. I mean, like, this is an elite league. Princeton beat Rutgers. Yale has a couple quality wins. They didn't lose to, I think it was Duke or Baylor by that many points, and I just really think that those are good teams, and you can't say that the 14th best team in the SEC deserves a spot over these guys. And it's really just, I said it before conference play started, but when all these SEC teams play bad teams out of conference and they're all ranked highly, then when your Arkansas and your Missouri start knocking off your top teams, then it makes them look good while pushing the top teams off slightly. And so it just helps everybody up in the conference. And now you have, I think projected right now, it's 13 teams, and the 14th is Arkansas, and they're the first team out. So, I mean, I'm not going to hate on Arkansas because I do think that, talented teams should get in, or maybe not should get in, but I think that talented teams, should, I will rate them higher, like how I rate Rutgers so high because they have Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, but Arkansas is going to have elite players every year. I don't think they're going to ever be good in the tournament, like a Final Four appearance with Calipari because, I mean, just the culture because, like, you saw when Arkansas beat Kentucky at Kentucky, Ty Washington tweeted out, walk into a trap, take over your trap or whatever, and it's like, he's a Kentucky alum, but he shows more allegiance to John Calipari than the actual school he went to. And that just goes to show, like, these guys don't really care about what school they're at or bringing a title to their school. No, they care about how much money their coach can give them and just the little things like that don't. And sure, these guys can dominate in the NBA. De'Aaron Fox, SGA. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's so many Tyrese Maxey. There's so many elite players from Kentucky and Duke and almost all the All-Stars that play, or maybe not almost all, but all the All-Stars that are in, played in college that didn't come from overseas. A lot of them came from Kentucky and Duke. And Anthony Davis, I think, is the only guy on that list that has a championship from Kentucky and Duke because, they went undefeated that year, dominant team. Anthony Davis was great in college, but, like, a lot of these guys, they don't care about college basketball, and that's good for them, but I care about college basketball, and guys at UConn care about college basketball, and guys at Villanova, the Nova Knicks, those guys cared about college basketball, and guys at Gonzaga, I know they don't win it all, but they're a tournament tough team, and Houston's a tournament tough team. Like those type of guys, maybe they don't translate to the NBA, kind of like your Josh Carltons, your Adama Sanogos, your Eric Dixon's not going to translate in the NBA very well, I don't think. But like those guys really care about college basketball and really want to win a lot of stuff. Kind of like Hunter Dickinson, even though I don't really like the guy, he's a college basketball lifer. Kind of like Oscar Tshiebwe. He was a college basketball lifer. Probably isn't going to make it in the NBA. And it's just crazy to me at Kentucky that like he genuinely, or I guess he said that he felt called to come back to Kentucky, which I can respect that, but if he went to the NBA, I think the year before he actually went, he would have made less money in the NBA that year than he did at Kentucky, because Kentucky was paying him more money under the table or NIL. I don't remember what year it was where it was legalized, but he was getting more money to play at Kentucky than to actually play in the NBA, which is kind of crazy. But the Big East so disrespected. I hate that. Big 12 kind of disrespected, but realistically, I mean, when championship week comes around, when it's tournament week, conference tournaments, I'm really gonna be upset, because I look at this list right now and I see there's 7 conferences with more than one bid, and that's really sad to me, because how many conferences are there? I think 30 something, maybe 20 something. That might be a stretch actually, but yeah, I'd rather see the A10 get 2 bids, or the Ivy get 2 bids, or maybe not the American East, but I remember I watched UMBC in 2018 in championship week, because I remember they had KJ Moore from CF, and that team actually beat Virginia by 20 in the first round as a 16 seed, and they all, I forget who it was, but the team that they played in the conference title game gave them a tougher game than Virginia, and I mean that's just goes to show. I mean, like, Princeton last year would have they were a Sweet 16 team the year before, and they probably would have given anybody who they played a tough game, and instead they lost to Brown, who then lost to Yale. But you look at Princeton, Brown, and Yale, like all 3 of those teams had a very high potential at winning a tournament game, because Princeton was actually on the bubble after they beat Yale, but so many bid stealers. Historic year where the first 4 was on the 10 seed line. That's crazy. It was a very crazy year last year. But I mean, Robbie Avila didn't make the tournament last year. That would have been fun. But Princeton, beats 2 seed Arizona, then 7 seed Missouri, and then Yale beats Auburn, and then Brown plays a close game with both of those 2 teams I just mentioned. Like, those are 3 teams who really can make an impact in March and would be more exciting than, who are the worst teams in the SEC? They'd be more exciting to watch than Oklahoma, Georgia, maybe not Arkansas. I don't know, because they have DJ Wagner and Boogie Flan's out the whole year, I think. But I mean, Vandy. I mean, who cares about Vandy, man? Arkansas's here. North Carolina, maybe that's a little controversial. I think they'd be fun to see in March, just because RJ Davis, just because he's been so longevity. But I see VCU on the bubble here. I see SMU. I guess the ACC doesn't get much love. I guess they're not really a Power 5 league anymore, because they suck at everything. But I mean, Mountain West, 3 bids. I mean, what is it, the A10? I think the A10 should have like 4 bids this year. I mean, because I was looking at it the other day. I'm right here. So George Mason's the auto bid right now out of the A10. VCU's a great team. They're on the bubble. St. Louis, Robbie Avila, that's a good team. Dayton's a pretty good team. Loyola Chicago's a good team. St. Joseph, shout out Xavier Lee, triple-double against them, talking to the fans, saying, this is my effing city. I mean, look at St. Bonaventure, 17-8, while 5-7 in conference play. I mean, they came in 12-1. They might have been ranked at some point. I really doubt it, but I kind of remember that. I just remember they were really high, 12-1, and then 5-7 in conference. Duquesne, they're kind of having a down year, but they won a game in the tournament last year. Like, these are teams that will never have a chance to make it, because all the money is just fluctuated towards getting Vanderbilt and Georgia and Oklahoma in the tournament. And good for Asa Newell and Santos Uriel, but out of Georgia. But like, Oklahoma sucks, Vandy sucks. I'm gonna go to the Big 12. yeah, I'd love to see UCF get in. I don't think they deserve to get in, but I'd still like to see them get in. Wow, Colorado's 0-12 in conference play. Big Sky, I don't really know if that's going to be a conference where I'm going to be like, man, they deserve 2 bids. What is it, the league that Western Carolina's in? I forget. Southern, yeah, the Southern League. They're good every year. I mean, I think the Southern League, Samford and UNCG or Chattanooga. I mean, those are 2 pretty good teams. McNeese and Nichols probably. I'd rather see Nichols than Vandy, of course. What is it? The Summit League's pretty good. I'm looking at here. Omaha's a fun team. St. Thomas, Minnesota. I'm never really gonna argue for the SWAC or MEAC because no disrespect to them, but they're pretty much the 2 worst conferences in college basketball. I think a team could go undefeated there and they'd still be a 15 seed, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, West Coast gets 2 bids right now, and it's St. Mary's and San Francisco, I think. I don't think Gonzaga has a bid right now, and that's just like, I understand, Gonzaga's down year, but like down year 18-7, like I'd still rather see them and then a couple of these other teams, and yeah, I'm just not a fan of the SEC and all these hierarchies, and something that I'm gonna wrap it up with this, but something that I really want to, actually, I'll talk about one more thing. Creighton, they're the Big East is disrespected, and I wanted to talk about this more with Wyatt, but I mean, St. John's 15th in Ken Palm, 12th rated in the country. Joe Lenardi has them as a 5 seed, and he actually changed it yesterday, I think it was, to his highest 4 seed, like the 16th team in the country, and it's kind of sad. Like St. John's is just beat UConn, just beat Marquette. I think might have just beat Creighton. I don't know. St. John's is an elite team. They're a top 5 team. They deserve a 2 or 3 seed. To me, right now. Joe Lenardi's Tuesday bracketology should have them as a 2 or 3 seed right now today. They were 7 seed before they beat Marquette, and that's kind of crazy. The CBS Sports even had them as an 8 seed before they beat Marquette. I mean, they don't have any bad losses, and that's preposterous to me, Stephen A. Smith. But Creighton, I think that they're a very underrated team. That's why it's favorite team, I think. Kalkbrenner had 35 and 12 against Providence, 6 dunks. Stephen Ashworth, 23, 6 and 6. That guy's like 25 years in college basketball, but he's still a great player, and he's on a missions trip, I think, his first 2 years of college eligibility. So he's still like eligible. Like this is year 4 for him, I think. And then Jemiah Neal, he went off against UConn. I mean, those are 3 just really great players. I don't think Creighton's a team that you really want to play in March. They also have good shooters to go along with these guys. And they beat Kansas by 13. They beat St. John's. They only lost to Bama by 8. They beat UConn. A couple of bad losses, Nebraska and San Diego State. But, I mean, if you're going to say that Nebraska's an 11 seed, which I haven't hated on the Big Ten enough this pod, but if you're going to say Nebraska is an 11 seed, then that's not a bad loss. And frankly, if I told you a team beat Kansas, beat St. John's, only lost to Bama by 8, beat UConn, 35 and 12, 23, 6 and 6, and 24 against UConn, like if I told you that was that caliber team and they don't have that many losses or that many bad losses for that measure, if I told you that team was an 8 seed, that would be kind of crazy. And they're an 8 seed alongside of Clemson, St. Mary's, Gonzaga. Oh, Gonzaga's in. I guess they knocked off San Francisco. 9 seed Ohio State. Like if I told you New Mexico, West Virginia, Baylor. I mean, if I told you Creighton was in the company with that kind of teams, I'd be pretty upset because if I was a Creighton fan, because I think they're like a 6 seed resume. I think they're better than this Michigan team. Actually, Michigan's pretty decent. Danny Wolf and Sam Walters, and I feel like they have a pretty good guard too. I'm gonna click on them, but I just think that a lot of these SEC teams get thought of way too high. Oh, it's not that they have another guard. They have Vladislav Golden, who is elite. And I'm gonna try and wrap this up here, but I just don't love seeing these teams that get disrespected. And I know I'm beating a dead horse here because I talk about this every single podcast episode. If you actually listen to me, but yeah. And my outro that I'm gonna try and do on every single podcast from here on out is my Final Four opinion. The 4 teams that I think are going to be in it. I kind of had a different approach than what I have right now, because it's a couple days later. UConn. I could be filming a podcast March 5th. They could be out of the tournament, and I would still say they're a Final Four team. That's my first team. I still think UConn's going to win it all. Liam McNeely played hurt against St. John's. They had a lot of bad turnovers, a lot of missed shots, but frankly, Alex Caravan steps up, and Liam McNeely is back to what he was. Hassan Diarra and Aiden Mahaney are holding it down at the 1. If all that happens, they're winning a title. My other Final Four team, St. John's. Kadari Richmond, man, that is a great player. RJ Lewis, I think his name is. Great player as well. They just have guys everywhere. Zubi Ejiofor. I mean, this is not a team I want to play in March. This is not a team I want to play now. This is a great basketball team. My third and fourth team, because I'm locking them in. Realistically, they'll probably be in the rest of these installations. I'm not going to say Marquette, because Cam Jones, I don't think he can do it all for them. I don't think it'll be like I think I'll put in... See, the thing is if I say Duke and Auburn, and it's like 2-1 seeds, I mean, realistically, they're upsets in March, Like, we don't see these teams. But I'm not going to go as far as say that whoever comes out of the Ivies here, screw it. I think I'll lock... It's kind of crazy to say, but the Aggies, I'm writing them down. The Aggies out of, what's this called? College Town, I think the town is called. That's kind of a weird name for a city, but College Town or something. Texas A&M, pretty good basketball team. I understand they haven't been great, but I trust in Wade Taylor, trust in Zurich Phelps. I've been watching them for a couple of years since Quentin Jackson went there, and I just really think that, hey, they're a pretty decent basketball team. They're fun to watch. I think they don't have Quentin Jackson, obviously. They don't have Hassan Diarra, but I'll lock them in. I'll look back on this, and probably none of these teams will be in the Final Four. But and then my other Final Four team, I'll lock them in. It is a team at the SEC. It's not your Auburn, your Florida, your Tennessee, though. Sorry, Garrett Bukovic. But after what I saw against Florida, it's the best team out of Alabama. Your Crimson Tide, Alabama. Mark Sears plays a lot like Jalen Brunson. Grant Nelson's a good player. They got transfers coming in. Chris Youngblood. Right here. Here's the list. Well, I think it's backwards. I have no idea what it actually is going to look like. UConn, St. John's, Texas A&M, and Alabama. Filmed on February 9th. After the Chiefs lost in the Super Bowl. These are fun decals to have in my room. But yeah, hopefully everyone has a good night. God bless.